What's up, fellas? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Utah Jazz because this is a team that I think has been a little bit overlooked to begin this season. They weren't great at the beginning of the year, but they've won 6 games in a row. They've been playing extremely well. We're going to talk about what exactly is going right there in Utah and basically just bring a little bit more attention to this team because I think they've been playing really, really well and could be establishing themselves as a true threat at the top of the Western Conference. But quickly before we get started, if you're new here, what's up? My name's Tucker. I upload NBA videos twice a day, every day. So if that's something you're interested in, then be sure to subscribe to the channel down below so that you are up to date on everything that we have going on here. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well, helps get it out to more people on YouTube. And I have a link tree in the description that has every single social media on it that you could want. If you want to hang out with me outside of these videos, that is a great place to look. With those things said, let's talk about the Utah Jazz. So the pretty common theme here for Utah really over the last couple of years is just they're a really good basketball team. Like, there's nothing spectacular necessarily about the Jazz unless Donovan Mitchell is having a really, really good night. But they've put together a roster, post Gordon Hayward era that is just a really, really good group. I mean, Mitchell, Conley, Bogdanovich, Ingles, Gobert. Now they brought back Derek Favors. Like, there's just so many really, really good options on this group. And that has, as I said, just created a really, really just decent, really solid team. But the question here is, are they going to be able to elevate that into something more? Because they've been that in the past. They've been a 48 to 50 win team during an 82 game regular season. But can they elevate that to a different level, whether that be in the postseason or in the regular season? And that's something we're going to kind of keep an eye on with this group the rest of the way, because there are signs that they're starting to do that right now. So let's just look at the whole roster here. So Donovan Mitchell has been good, hasn't been anything necessarily groundbreaking, can still be more efficient as always, but we know what Donovan Mitchell is at this point, and there's still upside there for him as well because he is still a young player. But most nights he's going to drop 20 plus points, he's going to facilitate, he's going to give great effort and provides great athleticism, can get to the rim, can shoot, all that good stuff, right? Like, we know we're going to get out of Donovan Mitchell. Now, another guy that's been really good for them so far this year is Jordan Clarkson, a player that I criticized the Jazz for re-signing to the contract that they did, because for years and years and years, Jordan Clarkson has been a guy that, teams want initially, and then once they get him, they want to get rid of him. And, he can score off the bench, and he was really good for them after they made the move to trade for him last year. But I just didn't see the value in bringing him back at the number that they did. But I got to respect what Jordan Clarkson's been doing so far this season. He has been really, really good as a bench scoring option for them. And that's a great thing for Utah to have because, in the past, their lineups have been a little bit rigid in terms of what they can or can't do. And the fact that Clarkson is out there allows them to really put any number of players on the floor and know that they can have at least a semi-competent offense with his playmaking and with his scoring. And that's a huge, huge positive for a team in Utah that at times in the past has struggled offensively. So he's been really good for them. Mike Conley is a big difference maker here as well. Made multiple videos about him last year, about his struggles, about the fact that, he was supposed to be the elevating guy for this group when they made that trade. And he just wasn't very good last year. This year he's been much better and certainly off to a much better start. There are still things that he can improve, and he's still not old Mike Conley, but from a shooting perspective specifically, things have been vastly, vastly improved this year, and I would imagine that's just because he is now 100% fully healthy rather than whatever lower body issue he was dealing with for the majority of last season. So that is a positive thing and a huge difference maker for this group as well. Bogdanovich is back and healthy, albeit struggling a little bit statistically. He should turn it around. He should be fine, but that's something to keep an eye on that could lower the ceiling of this group moving forward, is if he's a player that just isn't going to be the same now after the injury that he sustained late in the year. That's going to be a problem for them. But I'm imagining he's going to turn it around. Joe Ingles has been solid as well. Rudy Gobert is doing Gobert things. We have a whole Gobert segment coming up later. And they have a really solid 9-man rotation. Like, that's really all you can say about Utah right now, is that their top 9 guys are really, really good. They've got versatility, they've got shooting, they've got playmaking, they've got scoring. Everybody is locked in defensively, and they're a really, really good, solid team. Now, one thing I will say is everybody but Ingles, who's missed 4 games, out of those top 9, whether it be all the way down to like Favors and Niang and Clarkson and Mitchell and everybody, with the exception of Joe Ingles, has played all 14 games. And that is not a luxury that many teams in the NBA have had to this point. I'm sure I don't need to explain why to you guys. So that's something to keep an eye on here, is the fact that Utah has been able to stay away from some of the issues that have plagued other teams around the league, whether it be injuries or protocol violations, whatever the case may be, with the exception of Ingles missing 4 games. they've had everybody ready to go every single night. So that's something to keep in mind here as it relates specifically to their record, not necessarily how well they're playing when those guys are on the floor. So as we look at the team as a whole now, they are top 10 in offensive and defensive rating. And typically that is a really, really good indicator of a team that is a legit threat at the top of their conference. They're not one-sided. They're not really good at one thing and not great at another. They're top 10 in both offensive and defensive rating. And if you keep that up for the entire season, typically that's a pretty good indicator of a team that has a chance to make a conference finals. They've also won 6 games in a row, with the exception of a relatively close game against Denver a couple of nights ago. They've been pummeling everybody they've been playing in the 6-game winning streak, and their next 5 games are all at home. So Utah has a chance to really, start creating some space between them at the top of the conference and some of these other middling teams in the West, as we are already so early in this season. However, the big question mark for this group as it relates back to that thing that I asked in the beginning about, what's the ceiling? Is there an opportunity for them to really elevate themselves toward the top of this conference in the regular season or the postseason? The question there for me comes down to Rudy Gobert, a player that they have heavily invested in, monetarily, obviously, with the new extension this past offseason. And the question for Gobert is, what are you going to get in the playoffs? Because on paper, right, one of the issues that teams in the West are having right now is the league has been going smaller and smaller and smaller, and teams have been adapting in that way, adding more shooting, playing smaller. But some of the better teams at the top of this conference, I say better teams, Denver's down at the bottom right now, but Jokic is obviously really good. You have to contend with him. But the Lakers showed last year that size can still be a powerful, powerful thing in the NBA, and you have to have an answer to Anthony Davis at the 5 and LeBron at the 4, or the Lakers running 2 bigs. You have to have an answer to that, and presumably Utah would have that at least at the 5 spot when it comes to Rudy Gobert, whether that be as an individual defender against Anthony Davis or against Nikola Jokic, who are both, perimeter talented players, but Gobert should at least be able to deter them a little bit, or the fact that he is such a good rim protector and rim defender should also be an advantage against some of those more perimeter-oriented teams that want to drive and want to kick, and Gobert doing everything at the rim should help them. So are you getting that is what it looks like it should be on paper, which is the great equalizer among teams going big or small. Or are you getting the Gobert that just doesn't really help you a ton when he's on the floor because he's getting exposed defensively at times in ball screens and things like that? I think that's been a little bit overstated, but at times it's definitely an issue. And then offensively, he just doesn't keep up with some of the better bigs in the conference. So that is still the big question mark for me, is as good as Utah has been over these last couple of games and to begin the season, and as good as a lot of the stats look, if we're talking about them as a real conference finals level team, it's going to depend on the new $200+ million guy in Rudy Gobert. It's going to depend on his ability to be a ceiling raiser and a difference maker in the postseason, offensively as well as defensively, because I think that's something that these teams in the West are continually thinking about. Is like, do we have the Lakers matchup? Do we have an ability to play with those guys and defend against those guys if we get to the conference championship? Because it would seem like the Lakers are going to be there, right? I think that's something the Clippers are thinking about. I think that's something that Utah is thinking about. I think that any of these teams that consider themselves real threats at the top of the conference are thinking about that. And the question for Utah is Gobert going to be an answer, or is he going to be a problem? And now all of a sudden, Derek Favors is playing huge minutes, in whatever round of the playoffs they eventually meet the Lakers. So those are all the considerations right now for me for Utah. I think they absolutely deserve more attention. I think given the state of the NBA right now, there have been a lot of different teams that maybe, have been getting a lot of attention for specific reasons, and Utah has been kind of, lurking underneath the surface here a little bit, but they are, to this point, one of the top teams in the West and should continue to be throughout the season as long as everybody remains healthy, as long as Donovan Mitchell continues to be the offensive focal point for them. Jordan Clarkson is really good off the bench, and all the different versatile options that they have on the wing and in the forward spots, all those things should be good. As long as Gobert is really good, they should be a very, very solid team at the top. So in terms of upside for them moving forward, apart from the Gobert thing, Bogdanović should continue to get better. I would expect maybe a slight regression in the record at some point once some of these guys do start missing games, whether it be because of rest or because of protocol, whatever the case may be. I do think you need to build that in a little bit, considering that has been an advantage for them to this point and a disadvantage for everybody else. So if you're just trying to figure out exactly how good they are specifically outside of the circumstances, I do think that is something to consider. But at the end of the day, Utah deserves more attention, and I'm trying to give them that today. And let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below of Utah. You know, do you think that they're a true threat, or you think it's just another season where they're going to be a 4-5 seed and we won't think much of them in the postseason? But with all those things said, I thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. As I said, I upload twice a day, every day, so it's a great place for super consistent NBA content. You can also leave a like rating on the video as well. Helps me out a ton. Lets me know that you're enjoying the content and helps get it out to more people on YouTube. And you can check me out at those various socials at the bottom of the screen. As I said, it's in a link tree down in the description below. With all those things said, hope everybody's staying safe. Hope everybody has an awesome rest of the day, and I will see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.